Psilocybin mushrooms are not a tool. Hello, everyone. My name is James W. Jesso. I am the host of Adventures to the Mind, which is a podcast and a YouTube channel that covers topics relevant and related to psychedelic culture, medicine, and research, and always with the underlying question of how it is we might work with our psychedelic experiences and through those experiences to become better people, personally, relationally, and in the larger context of the world that we are alive within. I am also the author of 2 books on working with psilocybin mushrooms for the cultivation of psychospiritual maturity, which also includes healing and psychological work as well. What you're about to hear is a clip of me talking on the Love and Compassion podcast, where I was interviewed by the host Jesso, and she asked me a question, and in the question was the language of psilocybin as a tool, psychedelics as a tool. And in this clip, I'm going to comment on why I'm uncomfortable with that language, and I hope you enjoy it. If you want to check out the entire interview, it's going to be clipped up here somewhere on the screen on YouTube or in the description to this episode, I'm so used to doing podcasts, description to this video. And so that's all. It's going to start with her question to me and then my response. There are timestamps if you want to jump ahead to just my response. And enjoy.
One of the most fascinating things that you have just mentioned explains a question I had around the addictions versus using psychedelics and other drugs for healing. If you think of the drugs as a tool, right? How you use the tool when you were younger to escape and so on, it didn't serve you the purpose, right? Like it didn't help you. It wasn't healing. It was leading you down a path of addictions and shame and guilt and so on. But then you decided to still use the drugs. So it's not like you said, well, I'm going to be drug free now. I'm leaving drugs. You perhaps it could be that you saw it as a tool and said, okay, but now I'm going to use this to go into the emotions, rather than escape with drugs. I'm going to go into the emotions and going to use it for healing and I'm going to use it for benefit and ask for guidance in the process. And therefore it was helpful. Do you think that's the case? Because I think one of the things that I've experienced is I came from a family that really frowned upon drugs, did not think anybody should be taking drugs. And it was, huge supporters of people being jailed for using drugs or distributing drugs. And I used to also work in the child protection system where children would be apprehended if their parents were drug users and were neglecting their needs or abusing them somehow. And so for me, it's fascinating how as a society we're shifting to see psychedelics, but also, how could psychedelics and drug use be used to help and heal mental health? So to me, this raises an interesting issue. And I was having this dialogue with myself in terms of, how can you have drug use on the one hand that can be really helpful? And on the other hand, it could also be such a hindrance. So I think you've kind of answered it, but I don't know if you wanted to expand further on what I said.
I think there's a couple lines there that I find interesting. I don't actually think psychedelics are tools, but this would be getting more into my sort of spiritual perspective on things. I believe that, psilocybin mushrooms, I don't know about the chemical. I'm going to save just the chemical, synthetic, whatever. I'll save my opinion on that. I'm not decided. But the mushrooms themselves are a plant or a fungi, So they're a once living organism that we harvest or we cultivate, and we then consume and experience the biological and psychological consequences of that living organism. And to me, I don't see living organisms as being tools. We could think of them as tools, although it is dead, it's dried. But we could think of them as tools. But when we think of something as a tool, and I take this specific description from someone I look up to named Stephen Jenkinson, a tool is an extension of the human hand, and in that sense, also an extension of the human will. And when we see psychedelics or say mushrooms or ayahuasca or something like this as tools, and it's a very popular language, tools for psychotherapy, tools for healing, tools for transformation, tools for the betterment of well people, what we're basically saying is that these things, what they are, is an extension of human will. They're an extension of the human hand, and that is all. And to me, this is very anthropocentric and very narrow-minded, and the sense of superiority that comes with such a claim is likely behind the various levels of crisis that we face right now ecologically and even economically and a number of other things, because of how human superiority and all of the world exists basically as defined by what we want from it, rather than what it might want or need onto itself. Not that I'm claiming I know what the mushrooms want or need, but it's just a question, if I have an ox, right? And that ox has a plow attached to the back of it, right? That plow is a tool, but is the ox a tool? So maybe the psychotherapy is a tool, but is the mushroom a tool? So that's one inquiry I have, not an answer, just an inquiry. I hope you found value in that. If you did, please share it, because my hopes are content like this gets put into the larger cultural discourse in a way that contributes to the culture making we're all a part of. And if you want to hear this entire interview, like I said, it's linked below. And also, many of the questions that Giselle asked me were based in a lecture that I gave called Psilocybin and Cultivation of Compassion, which is also here on YouTube, and I just linked in a card and in the description below. So thank you so much for watching. You can follow me at James W. Jesso, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Subscribe to the channel, of course, if you're interested in this kind of discourse around psychedelics. And I have a newsletter also linked below if you want to be connected with me without having to do so relying on the algorithms of social media. That's all. Thanks so much, and take care.